Good evening, my dear students. A very warm welcome to all of you. So today is the second last session for this chapter number 3, which is audit documentation and audit evidence. A very good evening, Vivek, Tanu, Sandeep, Charu, Shraddha, Pratiksha, Pooja. So students are very much excited, They joined the class before 6 o'clock. That's good. So students, we were discussing SA 505 on external confirmation in our last session, whereby I discussed with you few important terms that will be used in this essay. Okay? So I'll quickly recapitulate as to what we have done with respect to this essay, and then we'll continue. Today's session is, as usual, going to be very, very important because we'll be covering 2 more essays. Like we'll be covering 3 essays today. Okay? And one more thing, students, I've uploaded the descriptive questions, the practice questions, and the MCQs along with the key pointers. Okay? For your reference. So you should in fact go through all those questions. Okay? MCQs, case scenarios, you can practice them, and next session we'll be discussing, and if time permits, I'll discuss few questions today itself. With respect to descriptive questions, I'll be discussing all the questions in the class, right? But I need you people to just go through those questions before coming for the next session, and please, as I always say, practice them by writing. If I've given, say, 15 questions, at least practice 5 questions by writing, right? Because you will be fetching good marks for what you will be writing in the exam. So practice writing, how to write an answer, okay? And learn after understanding, as I always say, okay? So, with respect to external confirmation, essay 505, right? So we understood that this essay 505, it deals with the auditor responsibility to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence when he is performing what? External confirmation procedures. And now you all must be knowing that the entire 500 series, it deals with the auditor responsibility to do what? To obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Okay? Now essay 500, the name of the essay was what? Audit evidence. So we have seen there that any audit evidence which is obtained from an independent source is more reliable, right? As compared to if it is obtained from internal sources. Then the reliability increases when the audit evidence is obtained directly by the auditor and when it is in a documentary form. Right? And we discussed in the last session that all these features are available with what? External confirmation. So the reliability of external confirmation as an audit evidence is very high. But yes, it depends upon the circumstances. Why? I gave you example that let's say the third party is a related party, right? So there may be, there may be some chances that the reliability of such external confirmation is less. Okay? Now, what is an external confirmation? We saw that it is an audit evidence. Let me just take you through the definition in the module. Obtained as a direct written response to the auditor from the third party, or I can say the confirming party, in paper form or electronic or other media. It can be an email also, right? And we discussed the 4 types, or like 4 important terms, which is positive confirmation request, negative confirmation request, non-response, and exception. Okay? I'll be repeating the positive confirmation request and negative confirmation request again, though we have already discussed them. So what is positive confirmation request? Whereby the auditor is designing the confirmation request letter in such a way that he is asking the third party, let's say the debtor, that debtor, please reply to me in all the cases, whether you agree with the information that I have mentioned in the confirmation request letter or you do not agree. So positively, I need an answer, right? Negative confirmation request is what? When the auditor is designing the confirmation request letter in such a way whereby he is mentioning that Mr. Debtor, please reply to me only if you disagree with the information that has been mentioned in the confirmation request letter. Okay. What is a non-response? We discussed non-response also, that if any positive confirmation request, if the auditor is not getting any reply with respect to positive confirmation request, that is a non-response. Also, if either positive confirmation request or negative confirmation request, these are returned undelivered to the auditor, it will also become a case of what? Non-response. Okay. Now, what is meant by exception? When the reply received with respect to any of these confirmation requests is different from the information that is contained in the financial statements, right? That is called exception. And what should an auditor do with an exception? Quickly, I need replies. Should an auditor ignore it? No. Quickly tell me, what should an auditor do with that exception? I need answers. And part with respect to a query as to ma'am, which of the confirmation request is preferable. When we'll be finishing this essay, you will yourselves be in a position to answer this question. So, with respect to an exception, let's say the auditor has forwarded a positive confirmation request whereby he has asked the debtor that tell me whether the balance is 4 lakhs or not, right? The other party replies to it whereby it is mentioned that it is 6 lakhs. So auditor will analyze it, right? And let's say if for a sample, right, for a sample of debtors, sample number of transactions, the auditor has sent the confirmation request letter. In this situation, what will auditor do? Auditor will analyze the impact of the exception on the entire population. Okay? Auditor will analyze the impact of such exception on the entire population. Then let's say out of 1,000, he selected 100 samples, as in 100 debtors to whom the confirmation request has been sent. Out of that, 10% are exceptions. So he will analyze this impact that, okay, out of 100, if 10% is the exception, then out of 1,000, 10% can also be an exception. So he will consider the effect of such exception on the entire population that is being tested. Okay. So in the last class, we have discussed all that, and this is just a quick recap of what we did in the last session. Okay. Now, what will be the external confirmation procedure? So just try to, understand logically and just visualize as to if you are in a position, you are an auditor and you have to send an external confirmation request to the debtors or creditors or let's say bankers of the client, what will you do? See, first of all, you as an auditor, you will analyze as to what information you want to confirm. Okay, I'll be discussing all these points in detail. First, have a look at these 4 points. So you will determine as to what information is to be confirmed or requested from the debtors, right? Then you will select the appropriate confirming party as to from whom you want the balances or whatever you decide in point number 1 to be confirmed, right? After deciding that, you will design the confirmation request. Okay? You will make sure that the confirmation requests are properly addressed, and you will mention the return information so that the confirmation replies are directly received by you, that is the auditor. And last but not the least, you will be sending the request, and only sending the request is not enough. In case the replies are not received, you will do the follow-up activities. Okay? So let us just discuss all these steps one by one. Right. So you will determine what information you want to confirm. Okay? Now let's say I can ask that, okay, tell me what is the balance, account balance as on 31st March. That debtor, let us say the debtor is Mr. A. Okay? And my client is what? XYZ Limited. So I may write to Mr. A that Mr. A, tell me what is the balance of my client XYZ Limited as on this date. So I can ask the balance. Okay? I may ask them, please tell me the amounts with respect to individual invoices. That with respect to so and so invoice, what is the balance? Okay? Then I may ask the debtor, that is Mr. A, that please tell me the terms and conditions, right? As to what is the repayment terms, or is there any discount that has been given? Please tell me what the terms and conditions. So we can say that when an auditor is performing the external confirmation procedure, so he is not just restricted to confirm what account balance or amount. He can also confirm the terms and conditions. And students, auditor can also confirm the absence of conditions. What is meant by this? See, the example given in your module is what? Side agreement. So what exactly is this? See, it might be possible that there are, let's say, 10 debtors. Okay? With respect to all the debtors, similar kind of agreement has been made. Okay? But with respect to 2 or 3 debtors, there is a side agreement, a subsidiary agreement, right? Whereby some additional terms and conditions have been mentioned. Now, when the auditor is verifying the debtor balances, he is shown the agreement which is similar for all the debtors, right? But that side agreement that is applicable to 2 or 3 more debtors, he is not shown that agreement, right? So that is a side agreement, subsidiary agreement, which is not shown to the debtor, right? So debtor can always ask the other party that Mr. A, please tell me what is the agreement number? What are the terms as per the agreement number, as per this agreement, so as to confirm that is there a possibility that there are certain terms and conditions which have been, modified outside the recognized sale process or reporting, right? So side agreement is what? A subsidiary agreement, which is made in order to give some preference to 2 or 3 customers and which is not shown to the auditor. Okay? So auditor can confirm all these information from the parties. It can be debtor, creditor, bankers, and the list is very long. We'll be discussing this also. Now, selecting the appropriate confirming party. Again, can the auditor address this confirmation request letter to the pantry boy or the peon of the company? No. He need to address it. He can obtain the information from the knowledgeable persons, right? From the knowledgeable persons. Just a minute. From the knowledgeable persons, like if there is, CFO, CEO of the other organization who are having the knowledge with respect to that particular amount. Okay? So first of all, we saw that the confirmation request, the information that can be confirmed from the external party can be account balances, amount of invoices, terms and conditions, or absence of any condition. Then who should be the confirming party? The knowledgeable persons, right? Now, third point, which is designing the confirmation request. Now the auditor has decided as to what are the parties from whom he want to confirm. Okay? He has decided as to what is the information he want to confirm. Now he will design the request letter and he will make sure that the request letter are properly addressed. Okay? From where will he get the addresses? From the management. Now he'll ask the management that management, I want to send the confirmation request letter to the debtors and the creditors. Please provide me with the addresses of all these parties. Okay? And the confirmation request letter should have the return information. And if you remember, the definition says it is a direct written response to the auditor. So the confirmations that are coming from the third parties, that is coming from Mr. A in our example, it should be directly received by the auditor. So the request letter should have the return information for the responses to be sent directly to the auditor. It should not happen that first the management is receiving it and then it is been received by the auditor. No, it should come directly to the auditor. Okay? Now there are certain points. See, when you are designing the confirmation request, now tell me, just imagine that you are Mr. A, the debtor. Okay? You get a confirmation request letter from an auditor of XYZ Limited, and it is just handwritten. Vis-a-vis, take another situation whereby it is a formal letter, whereby the authorization of ABC Limited management is also there. Okay? First is what I am saying, that it is just handwritten that please confirm the balance of my client in your books. Okay? You are Mr. A now, you are not the auditor. Okay? And second situation, what I am giving, that you get a proper printed confirmation request letter whereby the management of the company XYZ Limited, they are also authorizing, they are also mentioning that please reply to our auditor. In which situation is better, one or two? The reply rate. Okay? The reply rate, or I can say the response rate, will be high in which case? First or second? First or second? Quickly tell me. So obviously the second. Okay? So there are, certain factors that you will be considering as an auditor when you are designing the confirmation request letters. What are those? So factors to consider when designing confirmation request letters include, first of all, specified identified risk of material misstatement, including fraud risk factors. Okay? If you feel when you are assessing the risk of material misstatement under SA 315, you feel that major of the related part of the debtors are related parties, there are fraud risk factors, tell me whether you will send positive confirmation or you will send negative confirmation. Obviously, when you feel that there is some fraud risk, okay, you will send a positive confirmation. That is, I need an answer positively, whether you agree or you do not agree. Okay? Because in case of, yes, students are saying, ma'am, with respect to the first question, second situation is better. Now I ask you another question, that if the risk of material misstatement is there is a fraud risk factor, then what kind of confirmation you will send as an auditor? So auditor will send a positive confirmation. Okay? And what are the other factors? The layout, the presentation. Okay? Then prior experience on audit or similar engagements. Let's say you, the auditor, he was the auditor of this client XYZ Limited last year also. Okay? And last year he analyzed that most of the debtors, they were not replying. So tell me, will he send a negative confirmation request? No. He will send what? Positive confirmation request. Because if the debtors don't reply a negative confirmation request, what is assumed by the auditor? That they agree to whatever has been mentioned in the request letter. Okay? Same with the assertions being addressed as to he wants to confirm the balance as on the last day of the financial year, or he want an information with respect to what? Invoice wise or terms and conditions. Okay? Then method of communication, is it in paper form or email? Then management authorization or encouragement to the confirming party to respond to the auditor. I just gave you an example now, that in the second letter, the example that I gave you, which was all printed with the management authorization, that is authorization from management of ABC Limited, that listen, Mr. A, please reply this to the request of our auditor. Okay? And the ability of the intended confirming party to confirm or provide the requested information. Now quickly tell me, if you are the third party and I ask you that please give me a balance as on 31st March. This is my first situation, as on 31st March. Vis-a-vis the second situation, whereby I'm asking you to give me balance of this invoice, and this invoice, like 3 invoices are mentioned, which is, involving less work from your side, first or second? The first one. ठीक है, because उसमें तो क्या किया, you will just from the system you can have the balance as on 31st March, ठीक है. So that is why the ability of the intended conforming party to confirm or provide the requested information, for example individual invoice wise versus total balance, ठीक है. So we have covered 3 points. First was what? With respect to the information that you want to confirm. Then is designing the confirmation request. The second point is selecting the confirming party. The third is designing the confirmation request, which should be properly addressed and return information so that the responses are sent directly to the auditor. And we saw various factors. ठीक है, and we also saw that this designing has an impact on what? Response rate. ठीक है, and then the last is sending the request, ठीक है, and including follow up. ठीक है, if the response is not received, let's say if the response is not received, then what should an auditor do? Ignore it? नहीं, auditor he may revalidate the address and may send a follow up request. ठीक है, he may revalidate the address and may send the follow-up request. So these are the 4 points that is to be considered when designing an external confirmation request. ठीक है, clear so far? So अभी तक we have discussed the definition of external confirmation. What are the responsibilities of an auditor when he is performing external confirmation procedures in terms of SA 505? We discussed 2 types of confirmation along with what? Exception and non-response. Then we saw how to design, like what is the entire procedure of the external confirmation while seeking external confirmation. And Danu, which last point? Please mention it in your queries. Okay. Now, tell me quickly. I need answer now. I'll wait this time. Tell me, what if management? I told you that when you are deciding as to whom, from whom the responses are required, you ask the management to give you the addresses of the parties from whom you want the responses. Okay? Now, if management refuses to provide you with the information that no auditor, please don't send the confirmation request letter to these parties. Now, what to do in this case? Auditor will say, I'll not do the audit. ऐसा होता है? नहीं. So what to do? Management's refusal to allow the auditor to send a confirmation request. Management's refusal, management ने मना कर दिया that नहीं, I'll not provide you with the information, or he requested you, management, it requested you that please don't send the confirmation request letter to this party. Tell me, what as an auditor will you do? Just try to visualize yourself in such a situation. I'm sure you will be able to come out, you will be able to arrive at the right answer. Send in your replies. So my query is, if management refuses, management's refusal is there to allow the auditor to send a confirmation request, what will be done? See, management is refusing now. First of all, ask management, tell me what are the reasons? Why are you not allowing me to send the confirmation request to these parties? Okay? Okay? So first of all, you will inquire management. That management, tell me what are the reasons. ठीक है, किसको इंक्वायर करना है? मैनेजमेंट को, टू आस्क देम द रीजंस. व्हाट आर द रीजंस फॉर योर रिफ्यूजल? है ना, मैनेजमेंट अगर मना कर रही है, इट माइट बी पॉसिबल ना, देयर आर वैलिड रीजंस, एंड व्हाटएवर रीजंस मैनेजमेंट गिव्स यू, obtain audit evidence, sufficient appropriate audit evidence as to whether such reasons are valid and reasonable. For example, let's say a dispute against that debtor, Mr. A is been going. Okay? So management say that, see, a dispute is going against with respect to this particular amount only. ठीक है. So it will affect our case adversely if you send the confirmation request letter to Mr. A. So we request you that please do not send a confirmation request to this debtor. And let's say auditor finds it's reasonable. Auditor can always ask the management that ठीक है management, that this is the reason. You give me this reason in writing. Give me a written representation with respect to this fact. Okay? Because evidence is required now, and we know written representation is what? A necessary audit evidence. Okay? So inquire management of the reasons and obtain audit evidence with respect to the validity and reasonableness of the reasons. Okay? Whatever reasons management give you, evaluate its implication. See, evaluates its implication on what? Your assessment of risk of material misstatement. Auditor has assessed the risk of material misstatement under SA 315. Now management is saying that I will not allow you to send the confirmation request to so and so party. Auditor asked the management that management, please tell me the reasons. ठीक है, ऐसा तो नहीं है. There are some fraud risk factors. Why management is not allowing me? ऐसा तो नहीं है. There are fraud risk factors. Consider its effect on NTE of your audit procedures. Perform alternate procedures ना, है ना? ठीक है. So perform alternate procedures. And tell me if you find that even after performing the alternate procedure, like let's say auditor concludes that whatever reason management was giving is unreasonable, if they were valid and reasonable, so what I did, I performed alternate procedures. Okay? Now, if in other case, if I feel that whatever reasons management are giving, those are what? Unreasonable. What to do? First of all, see, management is not providing you with the information now. So communicate with those charged with governance if there are those charged with governance in that organization. Yeah, I gave you example of what? Sole proprietor, remember, and partnership. In those cases, there is not a demarcation as to who are management or those charged with governance. So if those charged with governance are there, communicate with them. And students, where do we communicate with those charged with governance? Under SA 260, 260. Okay? And consider the effect on the audit report under SA 705. So when I asked you students that in case management refuses, many of the students have written the answer that modify the opinion under SA 705. Students, see, modification option is available, but usse pehle we will inquire na whether management is reasons are reasonable and valid, है ना? And we will perform certain alternative procedures. And if after doing all that, we conclude that management's reasons are unreasonable, then only we will modify the opinion. And that too after communicating with those charged with governance under SA 260. So straightforward, do not jump on to modifying the opinion. Modification is not a small thing. Na? See, the client gets the account audited for that audit report only. And if you're modifying that opinion, it is not a small thing. Na? So before modifying an opinion, see, you are an expert now. Try to perform alternate procedures. Communicate with those charged governors. And when no option is left, then go to modification of an opinion. So straightforward, if management is refusing, do not go to straightforward, modifying the audit report. First of all, inquire management. Management se पूछोगे ना, management क्या हो गया? Why are you refusing? If you find the reasons to be valid and reasonable, perform alternative procedures. Na? Consider the effect on your assessment of risk of material misstatement. You might feel that, ma'am, we have already assessed the risk of material misstatement under SA 315. So under SA 315, you also studied that the assessment of risk of material misstatement can always be revised. To consider the impact on your risk assessment of risk of material misstatement, perform alternative procedures, communicate with those charged with governance, and still you find that see, nothing can be done, then modify the auditor's report. Your, ठीक है, ठीक है. So students have now understood. ठीक है. Now, now one more question before going to negative confirmation that I'll take you to the module. Tell me, when you receive a response to the external confirmation procedures, उसको क्या करना है? बस you will keep that in your file. Results of external confirmation procedures. See, it might be possible, na? See, you have sent a confirmation request to, let's say, the CFO of the company, ठीक है, of the debtor, ठीक है, or let's say GM accounts department of the debtor, and you receive a reply from the HR department. See, there is a doubt over the reliability of the response, na? How come? Hana? Or let's say you have asked them to confirm the amount invoice wise, but they have given you a total figure. There is a doubt about the reliability of the audit evidence now. So what to do in such case? Again, obtain further audit evidence. Hana? Obtain further audit evidence. And if you determine that that response is not reliable, again, consider its effect on what risk, your assessment of risk of material misstatement, perform your additional audit procedures, right? And still, if you confirm that they are not reliable, you can discuss with the management, you can discuss with those charged with governance, and then you can modify the opinion. Okay? Now, one more topic. Okay. So students are saying, yes, ma'am, before modifying the opinion, we'll ask for the reasons, we'll perform alternative procedures, and yes, you will communicate with those charged with governance. Okay. Now we have seen that external confirmation can be of two types: positive confirmation request and negative confirmation request. Okay. And positive confirmation is request is what? When you are asking the debtor or the creditor that please reply to me in all the cases. Okay. Whether you agree or you do not agree. Okay. And negative confirmation request is what? When you are asking the third party that please reply if you do not agree. Okay. Now, with respect to negative confirmation request, now it might be possible that the third party has intentionally not replied with the intent of what? Fraud. Okay. However, since you have not received the reply, the auditor might assume that the third party has what? Agreed. However, the third party was not agreeing to the information mentioned in that request, and the third party did not reply. Let's say the third party did not have the time to reply. Okay. They did not send you the response. However, they are not agreeing with the balance. Okay. So I can say that if I, as an auditor, I want to send the negative confirmation request as a sole substantive procedures, ki I'm sending the negative confirmation request only. Okay. There need to be certain situations that if all these conditions are satisfied, then only I can send negative confirmation request. Okay. So what are those conditions? Okay. Because chances are there now that you are sending the negative confirmation request, but the other party, it has, let's say, it has not replied you because it did not find it relevant. Okay. However, they are also not agreeing with the information mentioned, but you as an auditor, you will assume that they have agreed. Okay. So in this case, negative confirmation request can be sent if all these things are available, all these conditions are present. What are these? Let's say if the assessed risk of material misstatement is low and the internal controls are effective. Okay. Let's take vice versa. If the assessed risk of material misstatement is high, you will definitely send positive confirmation request now. Same way, if you find that the internal control with respect to debtors are not effective, you will send positive confirmation request now, that you cannot take any chance. कि negative confirmation भेजा, उसमें किसी ने reply नहीं किया, तो you are not in a position to assume that the third party will agree. ठीक है? So I can say negative confirmation request can be sent as a sole substantive procedures if all these conditions are satisfied. So the assessed risk of material misstatement is low and IC are good. Okay? And most importantly, many of the students were asking, ma'am, when is negative confirmation request recommended? Okay? See, when there is a large population, there are, let's say, thousands of debtors. Okay? Now, if you send a positive confirmation request letter to all these 1,000 debtors, it will increase your work as an auditor, na, that all thousands are replying to you. Okay? And you are checking all 1,000 replies. So what is advisable? That see, if there is a large population, okay, but the amount is the account balance, the amount is what? Small. Population is not small. Population is large, and it is consisting of small account balances. There are 1,000 debtors with, let's say, 10,000 rupees balance, ranging between 10,000 to 12,000, okay, and homogeneous, similar. So in this case, what I can do, I can send negative confirmation request to all. Okay. In this case, see how much reply will I get if I send negative confirmation. I'll get the reply only with respect to those debtors who are not agreeing. Hana? Let's say there are, let's say, 10. Okay? But if in this situation, I send a positive confirmation request, see, these amounts may not be material, na? And there is a large population. So if I send a positive confirmation request, I will have to check all 1,000 replies. But here I'll have to check only 10 replies as to who all are not agreeing. Okay? So first of all, assessed risk of material misstatement should be low. The internal control should be, effective. Population is large with small and homogeneous account balances. See, this small word is used for what? Account balances. It is not used for what? Small population. Population is large. The number of size of population is large. Okay? Very low exception rate. What is exception? We have seen when we discuss the 4 important terms. Exception is what? When you get a reply which is different from the information that you have mentioned in the request letter. Okay? And you are expecting that, okay, isme based on my previous experience and based on the internal controls, I as an auditor, I feel that exception rate is not much. Okay? A very low exception rate is expected. Expected by whom? By the auditor. And last, if the auditor is not aware of any circumstances that would cause recipients, who are recipient, the debtors, the creditors, of negative confirmation request to disregard such request. Maybe based on the prior period audit, auditor feels that ye wale debtors or creditors, they always reply. Okay? There is no circumstance, koi case nahi chal raha hai, koi problem nahi lag rahi hai, they will not disregard the request. Matlab, they will definitely reply if they disagree. Okay? So unless and until all these conditions are present, it is not advisable that auditor performs negative confirmation request as the sole substantive procedure. Okay? Okay? So let me just take you through the module with respect to this point. See, negative confirmation requests provide less persuasive audit evidence. What is persuasive? Convincing. So negative confirmation requests provide less convincing. Why? Because it might be possible that you have mentioned in the request letter that please send a reply only if you disagree. However, the third party did not reply out of some other reason. Okay? So less convincing than the positive. Why? Because positive mein to you will get the reply even when the third party agrees or don't agree. Okay? Or doesn't agree. The auditor shall not use negative confirmation request as sole substantive procedures to address and assess risk of material misstatement at assertion level unless all the following conditions are present. So can I say that the auditor shall use negative confirmation request as sole substantive procedure if all the conditions are present? These two negative terms gets cancelled now. In order to understand, you can read it like this also. That the auditor shall use negative confirmation if all the following conditions are present, or the other way is what? The auditor shall not send unless all the following conditions are present. So what are these? The auditor has assessed the risk of material misstatement as low and obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence regarding the operating effectiveness of controls. Which controls? Internal controls. The population of items subject to negative confirmation are large number. So number is large of small and homogeneous account balances. So don't get confused between this large and small. Large is what? For number of population, and small is what? For the amount or the account balances. A very low exception rate is expected. By whom? By the auditor. Okay? And the auditor is not aware of circumstances or condition that will cause recipients of negative confirmation requests to disregard. Okay? And once you receive the confirmation request, you need to consider the results of external confirmation procedures, whether they provide the sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Okay? So with this, we have seen SA 505, though a small part is still left, which is discussed in the module with the substantive procedures. If you remember, I told you there that I'll be taking this external confirmation part when we'll be doing what? SA 505. So first we will just quickly go through that part, and then I'll just recapitulate the entire essay. Okay? Now a small part is given here also. Let me just show it to you. So just a minute. Students, meanwhile, please tell me you are able to understand now. If there is any doubt, please let me know. So where is that point? Just a minute. 3.26. Okay. Yeah. So when we were discussing substantive procedure, there was a point of what? External confirmation as substantive procedures. Okay, Charu, which D point, please elaborate, so that when I'll be revising the entire essay after this discussion, I'll take up your point. So students, keep on sending me replies with respect to your queries, so that when I'll be revising the entire essay, I can take up your doubts. And please also tell me whether you are able to understand the concept or not. Okay? So see, most of this matter now we have already discussed, but let us just see. So it says that the external confirmation procedures can be used as substantive procedures. So just a revision, substantive procedures are what? Checking of the financial statement, to check what? Account balances, to check the terms of the agreement, okay, and absence of certain condition. Example, side agreement. I hope now this is clear. Okay. So most of the points you have already done. Okay. And if you remember, I told you that there are many situations with respect to what external confirmation can be taken, like bank balances or other information. Then accounts receivables, account payables, inventories held by third party, property title deeds by lawyers, investments held for safekeeping by third parties, amount due to lenders, account payables. And students, here one point is noteworthy, that the litigation and claims. Quickly tell me now a test as to whether you have understood the last session. Tell me which essay deal with litigation and claims. Which essay deals with litigations and claims? Quickly, I need replies. So we have done that SA 501. It contains the provision with respect to what identification, completeness of litigations and claims. So SA 505 specifically says that with respect to litigations and claims, do not refer to what? External confirmation. Go to SA 501. Okay? So these are all the examples whereby the external confirmations can be taken. Yeah. Now, students, tell me one thing. When I am sending an external confirmation request letter, see, there are various assertions with respect to what? Debtor balances. Okay? So I can confirm the existence, that debtor, whether you actually exist or not. Tell me, when I'm sending a confirmation request letter to a debtor, am I in a position to confirm the recoverability of such debtor? Maybe not. Why? Because from just looking at the confirmation request letter, the third party is saying, "Okay, the balance is 4 lakh. Okay, the terms and conditions are these." But it is possible now that with respect to recoverability assertion, there is no reply. So it says that although external confirmation may provide relevant audit evidence relating to certain assertions, jaise ki kya? Existence, but there are some assertions for which external confirmation provide less relevant audit evidence, jaise ki kya? The recoverability. Okay? And the same is explained in the example. Further, this says that let's say you obtain a bank balance confirmation from the bank. Okay, bank statement आया, let's say, and there the balances of debtors, creditors, whatever transactions have taken place during the year, those are also mentioned. So external confirmation obtained with respect to one item of the financial statement may also help with respect to verification of other items of the financial statement. Clear? Okay. Now this is one point which I wanted to discuss. There are certain factors that may assist the auditor in determining whether external confirmation procedures to be performed are. What are those factors? See, first of all, you will see what is the confirming party's knowledge on the subject matter. Okay? So who is the confirming party? And students, it might be possible that the confirming party is not willing to reply. Okay? And what can be those reasons? See, it might be possible that Mr. A, the example in our case, he may not accept the responsibility for responding. He may not find it relevant. He'll say, I'll not reply. Aise to I have number of creditors, sabka thodi na I'll reply. So he may not accept the responsibility. Second, he may consider responding too costly or time consuming. Upon like who will find out the balances with respect to each invoice, who will spend money in speed post courier, so I'll not reply. He may have concerns about potential legal liability resulting from responding. The other party may feel that if I confirm the balance in future, potential likely ऐसे तो नहीं है that there will be a dispute with respect to such responding. The account of the transactions may be in different currency. The debtors or the creditors, they are maintaining their account in different currencies. So they may not take the pains to convert it into INR or see that whether it amounts to INR of 4 lakh. And in such situations, confirming party may not respond or may respond in casual manner or attempt to restrict the reliance placed on the response. They may put certain conditions when they are replying. So further, the objectivity of the intended third party is also to be seen. Why? Because it may happen that they are a related party. And if they are a related party, in that case, responses to the request letters are going to be less reliable. Okay? So with this, we have completed SA 505. The points which I have just discussed are just a revision of whatever we have discussed. Okay? And these points are discussed in your module where when the substantive procedures has been discussed. Because what external confirmation is, what it is one of the substantive procedures. Now it can be used as one of the substantive procedures. Okay? Now, and students, one more thing. See, external confirmation procedure. See, when I'm performing risk assessment procedures, what all procedures can I perform? I can perform, let's say, inquiry, inspection, analytical procedure, observation. है ना, वहां पे थोड़ी ना एक्सटर्नल कंफर्मेशन वुड बी पॉसिबल. सेम वे विद रिस्पेक्ट टू टेस्टिंग ऑफ इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स. सो एक्सटर्नल कंफर्मेशन इज मोस्टली परफॉर्म एज व्हाट, एज अ सब्सटैंटिव प्रोसीजर. ठीक है, सो आई होप दिस इज क्लियर. ठीक है, and most of you have answered correctly that litigations and claims are discussed where in SA 501. Now I will just quickly revise SA 505 and then we will go to the next essay. So just a minute. ठीक है. So SA 505, it deals with the auditor's responsibility to obtain audit evidence when performing the external confirmation procedures. And we know that the reliability of an audit evidence as per SA 500 depends upon the source and nature. And more importantly, the reliability of an audit evidence increases when it is received from an independent source, it is received directly by the auditor, and it is in documentary form. And all these situations, all these conditions are present in external confirmation. But yes, if there is a circumstance that the conforming party is a related party, then that confirmation may not be so much reliable. Then what is the definition? Audit evidence obtained as a direct written response to the auditor from the third party in paper form, electronic or other media. What is positive confirmation request? That the auditor requests that the conforming party responds directly to the auditor. See, directly to the auditor will be there in negative and positive both. Okay? But positive में क्या है? Indicating whether the conforming party agrees or disagrees with the information in the request or providing the requested information. ठीक है? Or providing the requested information. I gave you example that what is the balance? Tell me, Mr. A, what is the balance of my clients in your books? Or the other situation can be whether the balance is 4 lakhs or not. ठीक है? A negative confirmation में क्या होगा? A request that the conforming party respond directly to the auditor only if is the key word. ठीक है? Only if the conforming party disagrees. Only if the conforming party disagrees with the information provided in the request. ठीक है? Then non-response, that the failure on the conforming party to respond or respond fully. Respond fully is what? Suppose you have asked for account balances and terms and conditions. ठीक है? They have only replied for what? Account balances, not for terms and conditions. ठीक है? To a positive confirmation. Why not negative? Because negative में reply नहीं आया, तो it means that they have agreed to the balance, or a confirmation request returned undelivered. And this point, this confirmation is what? Either positive or negative. What is an exception? A response that indicates difference between informations requested, 4 lakhs, remember, or contained in the entity's record, and the information provided by the third party, conforming party, in our case 6 lakhs. If you remember the example, the exception needs to be assessed on the entire population. Out of 1,000, if you have sent the request to 100 and there is a 10% exception rate, so you will analyze it on the entire population after analyzing the reason for difference. Okay? After applying the professional judgment, you will consider its effect on the entire population. Now, what is the procedure? First of all, what is the information? The confirming party, you will design it. You will make sure it is properly addressed and contain the return information. Then you will send it and then you will perform the follow-up request. Now, there are certain doubts with respect to what. Let me just have a look at the query. I'll repeat that again. Yes, substantive procedures wala point that we have seen from substantive procedures as external confirmation, that is a part of SA 505 itself. ठीक है, तो factors का first point. So determining the information. See what information ना, आपको क्या चाहिए? Account balance चाहिए या invoice information you want, that Mr. A, tell me what is the balance as on this date of my client, or tell me the invoice wise balance. ठीक है, or tell me what are the terms of your agreement, or tell me if there is any side agreement, that is you can confirm the absence of certain condition. ठीक है. Appropriate confirming party, and it says that it should be from a knowledgeable person, ठीक है, जिसको भी information है with respect to that balance, ठीक है. Then design करना है तो it will have a direct impact on what the response rate, whether the third party will reply or not, the reliability and the nature of audit evidence, and what are the factors, the specific identified risk of material misstatement including fraud risk, ठीक है. अगर ऐसा कुछ है, it is high, you will send what, positive confirmation, negative थोड़ी ना send करेंगे. The layout and presentation of confirmation request, prior experience on audit of similar engagement, assertions being addressed, है ना, method of communication, management's authorization or encouragement to the third party to respond, confirming party. See, this point is very beautifully explained. Confirming parties may only be willing to respond to a confirmation request containing management's authorization, ठीक है. The ability of intended confirming party to confirm. I gave you example of individual invoice balance and balance as on a date. So giving information with respect to balance as on 31st March is easier, as compared to taking out the information with respect to particular invoice. And follow up, that is the auditor may send additional confirmation request when reply to a previous request has not been received within reasonable time. He will re-verify the accuracy of the address and send an additional or follow-up request. Management refusal है तो straight away modification पे नहीं जाना है. First of all, what you will do, you will inquire the management. What are the reasons, है ना? You will see whether these are valid and reasonable. You will consider the implication on what, relevant risk of material misstatement. Assessment कहाँ होता है? SC 315 में ना, वहाँ पे you had certain assessment. Now, is there any implication on such assessment of risk of material misstatement, including the risk of fraud, and on NT of other procedures? Perform alternative procedures. If you find it to be unreasonable, even after performing alternate procedures, ना, communicate with those charged with governance. कहाँ पे करते हैं? SC 260 में. And then you may modify as per SC 705. Many of the students were writing, ma'am, SC 507. It is 705. 700 series deal with what? Reporting part. ठीक है? Now, results. Consider the effect now. See whether it is sufficient appropriate audit evidence or not. And the last topic is that unless and until all these conditions are present, auditor is right that auditor do not send a negative confirmation request. Why? Because it gives you a less persuasive audit evidence. That is less convincing audit evidence. Okay? So if all these conditions are satisfied, then you can send. What are those conditions? Sabse pehle, the risk of material misstatement, assessed risk of material misstatement is low, and IC, internal controls on debtors or credit sales, are what? Effective. If we take the example of debtors, okay? The population is large and it consists of small homogeneous account balances or transactions, okay? A very low exception rate is expected, and last but not the least, the auditor is not aware about any of the circumstance or condition that would cause the recipient, who is the recipient, the confirming party of the negative confirmation request, to disregard such request. Okay? And auditor, when you are receiving the responses, just see whether they provide you with what? Relevant, reliable, sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Okay? So with this, we have finished what? Essay 505. Quickly send in your replies. That is there any query, or have you understood everything? These essays are very important from the point of view of descriptive questions, true, false, MCQs, case scenarios. Okay? So in short, it is very important from the examination point of view. So please be attentive and listen to these essays properly. And yes, in the class, you will be able to understand, but please, after the class, read them thoroughly from your module and start learning. Okay? So learning is very important. And ma'am, students are saying, ma'am, it's clear. Okay? Now, our next essay for today's session is what? Essay 510, which is on what? Initial audit engagements opening balances. Okay? Initial audit engagement opening balances. So let us start with this essay. See, quickly tell me, where have you seen this name, initial audit engagement? You have done that chapter with me, and this, I think, gives you the answer to my query. Where have you done initial audit engagement? A small part came when you did a chapter with me. Quickly, I need answers, students. So students are saying, ma'am, the SA 505 is clear, okay? And Shivam is saying, ma'am, in chapter number 1, that is correct, okay? Now come out of SA 505 and enter into the story that I'll be framing for SA 510. So what is the name? Initial audit engagements, opening balances. Now, let's say you are the auditor and you are conducting the audit of the financial statement for the year 2020 to 21. Okay? 2021 ka you are conducting the audit. Okay? So I can say that you will be giving your opinion with respect to balance sheet as on 31st March 2021, and with respect to the P&L, that is for the period ending 31st March 2021. Okay? Okay. Now, when you are giving your opinion on the balances as on 31st March 2021, okay? Now, how these balances are arrived? Just a moment. Closing balance as on 31st March 2021. Okay? So, how these balances are arrived? So, there were certain opening balances as on what? 1st April 2020. There were certain transactions during the year, and then the closing balance arrived. So when you are conducting the audit of financial year 2021, you are giving your opinion on closing balances and the transactions that have taken place during the year. Okay. Now, students, just imagine that if you are giving your opinion on the closing balances, as on 31st March, unless and until you are sure about the opening balances, can you give a correct opinion on the closing balances? Let's say there is a problem in the opening balances itself. So if you give an opinion that the closing balance reflected true and fair view, will that be correct? So auditor has certain responsibility with respect to opening balances. Okay? That is, see, what is this opening? This is what? Closing as on, closing balance as on 31st March 2020. ठीक है, इसका मतलब क्या है? That with respect to financial year 1920, with respect to financial year 1920, whatever are the closing balances, they have become opening for financial year 2021. Now, if I was the auditor with respect to this client last year also, 1920, maybe I was the auditor, or 2021, maybe I am the auditor. That means if it is a recurring audit, then there is no problem. But my dear students, this SA 510, the name is Initial Audit Engagements - Opening Balances. So this is not a case of recurring audit. This is a case of what? Initial Audit Engagements. Okay? So SA 501 will be applicable in case of initial audit engagements only. Okay? Now you will say, ma'am, what are initial audit engagements? Okay? So let us just have a look. See. Any audit engagement is what? Audit engagement, okay, in which either the financial statement for the prior period, 1920 in our case, were not audited. The client was not required to get the financial statements audited, okay, or the financial statements for the prior period, in our case 1920, they were audited by a predecessor auditor. Predecessor, by, let's say, the dictionary meaning is what? Former. Hana? So it was audited by some other auditor, but it was not audited by me. That is why it is what? Initial audit engagement. If I would have conducted the audit in financial year 1920, then it would have been a recurring audit. Okay? But we are now talking about initial audit engagement. That is either the financial statement of the prior period were not audited, or if they were audited by some other auditor, by predecessor. मेरे से पहले जो auditor था, predecessor, former auditor. ठीक है? So clear? And yes, Sandeep, you are correct. We have discussed it in chapter number 1 when we were discussing quality control. Okay? So what we have seen, see, I'll repeat it again, then we will go to what is contained in SA 510. Okay? So let's say when you are conducting the audit of, when the auditor is conducting the audit of financial year 2021, he is giving his opinion with respect to the balances that are appearing in balance sheet as on 31st March 2021, and with respect to the transactions that have taken place during the year 2021, right? But when the auditor has to give his opinion on the closing balances, so unless and until he is sure about the opening balances, he cannot give a correct opinion on the closing balances also. And since he has not conducted the audit of previous year, so SA 501 says that auditor, you have some responsibility with respect to opening balances in initial audit engagements. Now auditor says, please tell me what is initial audit engagement. So SA 501 says that initial audit engagement is an audit engagement. So the term is what? An engagement in which either the financial statement of prior period were not audited, or financial statement for prior period were audited by a predecessor auditor. That is, you did not conduct the audit of the last year. It was conducted by someone else. Okay. So SA 510 deals with the auditor's responsibility relating to opening balances when conducting an initial audit engagement. Okay? And what is contained in opening balances? See, whatever financial amounts are there, the debtors balance is itna, closing of last year becomes the opening of this year. Okay? So whatever financial amounts are there, closing balances of last year becomes the opening of this year, and whatever disclosures with respect to, let's say, contingencies or any commitments are there, they will also become opening disclosures now. So the responsibility of the auditor with respect to the financial statement accounts and the disclosures is what we will be reading in this chapter. Okay? So let us try to understand. See, let's say last year 1920 में ना, as on 31st March 2020, the inventory that is appearing as a closing balance of last year, it was overvalued. ठीक है? It was overvalued. ठीक है? Now this becomes the opening of this year. ठीक है? जिसका I am conducting the audit. So unless and until this opening inventory, opening stock, this is rectified, the closing will not be correct. Okay? So if it is rectified as a, let's say, prior period item adjustment, then what is my responsibility? And if it is not rectified at all during the current year, then what is my responsibility as an auditor? We'll be discussing both the situations. Okay? So let me just take you through the module and then we'll proceed further. So don't get it confused with SA 501. 501 is what? Audit evidence with respect to what? Specific considerations for selected items. This is SA 510. Initial audit engagement, opening balances. So it deals with the auditor's responsibility relating to opening balances when conducting an initial audit engagement. Both the situations are present. Opening balances hai, and it is an initial audit engagement. And what is meant by opening balances? In addition to financial statement amounts, your debtor balance, creditor balance, bank balance, building, fixed assets, everything. Opening balances include matters requiring disclosure that existed at the beginning of the period, like your contingencies and commitments. Okay? And what is an initial audit engagement? An engagement in which either the financial statements for the prior period were not audited, or the financial statement for prior cetus period last year, है they were audited by a predecessor auditor. Okay? Clear so far? So now tell me, what do you understand? What will be the objective of this of the auditor as per this essay? So our next topic is objective of the auditor. Just a minute. Quickly, meanwhile, send your replies. What can be the objectives of the auditor? So, in terms of SA 510, see, the objective of the auditor are to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Itna to pata hai na, that with respect to 500 series, the objective will be to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. With respect to what SA 510 says, that yes, Parth is saying that opening balances are true and fair. Okay? So I'll just, the crux is correct, but let us see what language is used in SA 510. It says that auditor will obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to confirm as to whether the opening balances contain any material misstatement that has an effect on the current year financial statements. That whether the opening balances has a material misstatement that has an effect on the current period financial statement. I gave you what? Let's say overvaluation of inventory. So let's say this is material. Okay? This is affecting the economic decisions of the users of the financial statement, and as per auditors materiality levels, yes, this is material. Okay? So whether it is affecting the current year financial statement, let's say that the client, they have rectified this, they have they have rectified it as a prior period item. The adjustment has been done and which has been duly disclosed in this year. So will it still affect the current year financial statement? No. So auditor will have to see whether there is any material misstatement in the opening balances that has an effect on the current year financial statement. Okay. So first of all, this is the objective with respect to SA 510. And secondly, see whether the accounting policies, what will auditor see? That whether the accounting policies are consistently applied. You will say, ma'am, this is the we are doing from foundation level. The accounting policies needs to be applied consistently. And if they are not applied, then adequate presentation and disclosure is required as per the applicable FRF. Hana? So if any of the accounting policies, so first of all, what will auditor see? Whether the opening balances has a material misstatement that still have the effect on the current year financial statement. And secondly, auditor will confirm, he will obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence as to whether the accounting policies are consistently applied, and if they have not been applied, whether the required disclosure presentation has been given in accordance with applicable FRF. Okay? So in this essay, we'll be studying in detail as to what audit procedures are to be done, and what if these two things are not happening, what course of action is available to the auditor. Okay? Itna samajh aata hai? Clear? Just a minute. So clear? just so let me just write here. ठीक है, ठीक है. Now we have seen the objective. कि objective है with respect to what your opening balance. ठीक है, that they should not contain a material misstatement that has an effect on current year financial statement. Further, with respect to accounting policies, ठीक है, whether it has been consistently applied, and if not, whether proper presentation and disclosure as required by applicable FRF has been done or not. ठीक है. Now tell me, just try to understand or just imagine yourself that last year you did not conduct the audit, or the audit was not conducted. Tell me, what will be your first step? What will you inspect? So I can say, just send me your replies. कैसे पता चलेगा ना कि लास्ट ईयर की क्लोजिंग क्या थी? कहां से पता चलेगा? From the last year financial statement. So I can say that first of all, auditor will read the most recent financial statement, whatever financial statement, most recent is what? The prior period's financial statement. And if they were audited, the predecessor auditor's report, Hana, the predecessor auditor's report. If you remember, when we did essay 315, assessing the risk of material misstatement, तो उसमें यही तो होता था, auditor obtains a general understanding about the entity and its environment. How? By inspecting, by inquiring, by performing analytical procedures, or by observing. So auditor can inspect the recent financial statement and the predecessor's auditor report. Why? Because he wants to be sure that whether the opening balances, which are actually the closing of last year, whether all those opening balances along with the disclosures, he wants to obtain information relevant to all these items. Okay, he want to be sure whether the opening balances, the disclosure contain any material misstatement which can affect the current year financial statement. Okay, so first of all, what will auditor see? He will see whether the closing balances of the last year are correctly brought forward this year. ऐसा तो नहीं है that there is a mistake when the balances were brought forward. 8 lakh का inventory था, but it has the opening here is what? 10 lakhs. ठीक है. So first of all, see whether the closing balance is correctly brought forward or not. ठीक है. And further, let's say 8 lakh का inventory था, now it has been carried forward as 10 lakhs. ठीक है. Ask the management ना, management, what is the reason? Management may say, see, last year na there was like we did not value it correctly, and now we have adjusted it as a prior period item adjustment, and we have disclosed this also. Then this will be fine now. So also see whether any item has been adjusted as a prior period item and whether the proper disclosure has been made. Okay? Then see whether the accounting policies are consistently applied. You are going through the financial statements of last year, of this year. Okay? So see whether these are consistently applied. Okay? Then students try to now concentrate. See, it might be possible that during the current year, you are performing some audit procedure, and by performing those audit procedure, you as an auditor, you are able to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence with respect to opening balance. Okay? Let us try to understand this with the help of an example. Let's say there is a debtor, Mr. A. Okay? The closing balance of Mr. A last year was 4 lakhs. So the opening also becomes 4 lakh. And during the year, when you were conducting the audit of the current year, okay, you were performing the audit procedures with respect to current year, you saw that one of the transactions during the year is that 4 lakhs were received from Mr. A. Now, as such, you are not performing any audit procedure with respect to opening balance. But when you were performing the audit procedure with respect to the transaction that have taken place during the year, you are able to, verify the opening balance. Okay? So this can happen with respect to your current assets, current liabilities. Okay? जो भी last year का balance था, which has become opening, now with respect to the debtors, the amount has been received. With respect to the creditors, the payments are made. So when you are confirming the current year audit, you are performing the current year audit procedures, you will automatically, with respect to certain items, I gave you example of current assets, current liability. You as an auditor, you will be able to verify certain opening balances. So SA 510 says, auditor, consider that. Secondly, let's say with respect to certain items, such thing will not be possible. So with respect to those, perform specific audit procedures. So let's say the opening balance of building is, let's say, 1 crore. Okay? Now with respect to this building, you may perform specific procedure. You may ask the management that management, with respect to this opening balance of building now, please give me the title deed. Please give me the electricity bill so that I can know the ownership. Please give me the title deed. So you may perform certain specific audit procedure. Why? Because SA 510 says, auditor, you have certain responsibility towards the opening balances, though to a limited extent, but you have a responsibility. ठीक है? तो अभी तक हमने क्या किया है? That what are the audit procedure? Read the most recent financial statement, and if the financial statements were audited last year, then the predecessor auditor's report. Okay, and see whether the closing balances are correctly brought forward, or if they are not brought forward correctly, then it might be possible that there is any prior period adjustment. See whether any prior period item has been adjusted and disclosed and discussed with the management. Okay. Also see whether accounting policies are consistently applied. And when you are performing the audit procedure with respect to current year, with respect to certain items, let's say current assets and liability, auditor, you will be able to verify the opening balances. Okay. And with respect to the items for which you are not able to obtain audit evidence by performing the current year audit procedures, उसके लिए अलग से कर लो ना, है ना? उसके लिए perform the specific audit procedures. ठीक है? Clear so far? Clear so far? So this was the audit procedure. Okay. Now, let's say when the auditor was performing all these procedures, he obtained an audit evidence that the opening balance contains a material misstatement, and this has an effect on the current year financial statement. ठीक है? अब क्या हुआ? हमने ऑडिटर को क्या बोला? That auditor, you have certain responsibility with respect to what? Opening balances, disclosures in case of initial audit engagement. तो perform all these procedures. Now auditor says, ठीक है, I performed it. ठीक है? And after performing these procedure, whatever audit evidence I obtained, it shows.
Recording in progress.
So this says, do not directly jump on your audit report. Perform additional procedures. Okay, you are an expert. You will be giving an expert opinion. Na, pehle be sure na you perform additional procedures and again determine the effect on what current year financial statement. अच्छे से be sure. ठीक है? And in case you conclude that they have an effect, the inventory has been overvalued in the opening balance and the same has not been rectified as any prior period item. ठीक है? What to do in this case? First of all, discuss this with the management or those charged with governance. Those charged with governance. ठीक है? See, there is one SF 450, which is what? Evaluation of misstatements identified during the audit. What is it? Evaluation of misstatements identified during audit. Identified during audit. So auditor, now in terms of SF 450, since you have identified a misstatement, though it pertains to opening balances, but it is having an effect in your current year audit now, current year financial statement now. Communicate it with management and those start with governance. Okay? And if you feel that this is going to have a material effect, if applying your professional judgment, you understand that this is going to have a material effect on your current year financial statement, now modify your opinion as per SA 705. And what modification? The terms used in your module are qualified or adverse opinion. Okay? So abhi I'll not go into details of qualified or adverse opinion. Just try to understand why, because this is a very important lengthy topic which you will be doing in chapter number 11. Okay? Abhi ke liye try to understand that modify your opinion in terms of SA 705. तो इसमें हमने क्या किया है? That auditor said that ठीक है, मैंने audit procedures कर लिए, and now I have obtained audit evidence that the opening state balances contain a misstatement that has an effect on the current year financial statement. तो अब बताओ क्या करूं? The SA says that perform additional procedures, determine its effect. If you conclude that they are affecting current year financial statement, discuss with those charged with governance and management. Why? Because this is a misstatement which you have identified during an audit, and SA 450 deals with evaluation of misstatement identified during audit. And auditor, if this is going to affect your current year financial statement, the conclusion is final, consider its impact on your audit report. Clear? Clear? Okay. So let's see the other topic also. Now we were discussing about what? Opening balance and accounting policies. If you remember, when we discussed the objectives, we saw that opening balances भी check करना है, accounting policies भी check करना है. With respect to both, we have seen what? The procedures. ठीक है? So auditor says ठीक है, कर लिया procedures. अब procedures के बाद I found the misstatement. So SA 510 says these are the options available to you. Okay. Now auditor says, let's say that when I was obtaining sufficient and appropriate audit evidence with respect to accounting policies now, then I obtained sufficient appropriate audit evidence that these are not consistently applied. Consistently nahi apply kiya. And if there is inconsistency, disclose nahi kiya, presented or disclosed as per the applicable FRF. This is not present. So what to do? So it again says that if you conclude that the accounting policies are either not consistently applied, okay, from last year to this year, okay, and the presentation and disclosure as per FRF is also not given, in such situation, consider the impact on your audit report in terms of SA 705. Simple, okay. Now, students, consider a case that with respect to last year, okay, the financial statements were audited, and the predecessor auditor who has conducted the audit last year, now he has given a modification in his report. He has given a modification in his report. Now, what to do? See, students, when you as an auditor under SA 315, when you are assessing the risk of material misstatement, what are the audit procedures? You yourself replied to me that the auditor can always inspect the predecessor auditor's report. So at that time, when the auditor finds, oh, acha, there is a modification in the predecessor's audited report, what will auditor feel? Auditor will now understand that since there is a modification in the predecessor's auditor report, I need to perform the audit procedure on the opening balances also. Here now he will plan, he will strategize accordingly. है ना? So when you are assessing the risk of material misstatement under SA 315 and there has been any modification, see modification तो उसी stage पे पता चल सकता है ना? Why? Because you can just peruse. What is the term that has been used? Perusing. Perusing is what? Going through or what? Reading. So auditor can always read the predecessor's auditor report na, and he can see if yes, okay, there is a modification. So auditor will apply his professional judgment. He will plan and perform accordingly. He will plan the entry of audit procedures that since there is a modification, I need to devote my time and resources towards checking of the opening balances. Okay? And if you feel that after checking these opening balances, you feel you've obtained sufficient appropriate audit evidence that such modification is still relevant. It is still relevant in the current year financial statement. The management has not done any adjustment by way of prior period item adjustment. Nothing has been disclosed. Then again, consider the impact under SA 705 in your audit report. Okay? And one more case. Tell me, students, I went to the management. That management last year I did not conduct the audit. It was conducted by someone else, or let's say it was not conducted. Okay? That is, it is my initial audit engagement. Please give me the last year's financial statement. Management says that the last year financial statements have been destroyed by fire. That is the fourth situation. That is, you are unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence with respect to what? This is what? Sufficient appropriate audit evidence with respect to opening balances. Kahan se check karoge? Why? Because the financial statement have been destroyed by fire. What to do? See, your opinion is based on what? Conclusions. Conclusions are based on what? Audit evidence. Okay? If you remember, we did the definition of audit evidence, that the audit procedures performed to obtain audit evidence, है ना? The objectives as per SA 500. To draw the conclusions on which the opinion is based. अब जब conclusions ही नहीं है, why? Because you are not able to obtain audit evidence. So report कहाँ से आएगा? Opinion कहाँ से आएगा? So see, there is one opinion which is disclaimer of opinion. That is, auditor is saying that I cannot give an opinion because I'm unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. So if you are unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence with respect to opening balances, consider the effect under SA 705. So why SA 705? Because this type of opinion is also discussed in SA 705. So this was your SA 510. But I will revise it before going for the break. Okay? And in case you have any query, please let me know. Let us just go through the module, just 10 minutes. Then we will take a break of 10 minutes and then last essay for this session. Okay? So please don't go anywhere. Please be with me. So what is an initial audit engagement and what are opening balances is dealt in SA 510. So it says that auditor, you have a responsibility with respect to the opening balances, the disclosures contained therein. Why? Because opening plus minus the transaction becomes your closing. Unless and until you have a confidence on the opening balances, you cannot give a correct opinion with respect to the closing balances. Okay? And what are initial audit engagements? The engagement in which either the financial statements for the prior period were not audited, or they were audited by a predecessor auditor. That is, the auditor concerned has not conducted the audit. So what is the objective? First of all, you need to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence about whether opening balances contain misstatement that materially affect the current year financial statement. I gave you example of what? Inventory, overvaluation, and appropriate accounting policies reflected in opening balances have been consistently applied in current period financial statement, or if changes are properly accounted for and disclosed, presented as per the applicable FRF. So what are the procedures? SA 510 says that auditor read the most recent financial statements and the predecessor auditor's report, if any, if they were audited last year. Okay? And obtained sufficient appropriate audit evidence whether the opening balances contain misstatement that materially affect the current year financial statement. कैसे करना है? Simple ना, just see whether the prior period closing balances had been correctly brought forward to the current year. ठीक है? And if not, when appropriate, any adjustment that has been disclosed as prior period item in the current year statement of P&L. ठीक है? ये कर लिया. उसके बाद see whether the accounting policies, the opening balances reflect the correct application of appropriate accounting policies. ठीक है? उसके बाद क्या करना है? You may peruse the copies of audited financial statement including other relevant documents. ठीक है? Peruse is what? Reading. Just a minute. Peruse is what? Reading. ठीक है? And if you remember, I gave you example of current asset, current liability. So these example are for these lines. Evaluate whether audit procedures performed in the current period provide evidence relevant to the opening balances. I gave you example of current asset, current liability. We took an example of one of the debtor, that there was a debtor whose opening balance was 4 lakh, and during the year those 4 lakhs have been received. So this verifies the opening balances. ठीक है? However, with respect to certain items like your fixed assets, your long-term assets and long-term liabilities, you perform specific audit procedure to obtain the evidence regarding the opening balances. Now you may say that, ma'am, it has extended the scope of audit. Yes, it has. So accordingly, while you are assessing the risk of material misstatement under SF 315, you are obtaining an understanding of the entity and its environment. Consider your scope there, na? Accordingly plan and perform your audit. ठीक है? And if the auditor obtains an audit evidence, क्या audit evidence मिला? That there is a material misstatement that could materially affect, that could हो सकता है, तो क्या करना है? But you are an expert now, perform additional audit procedures. पहले perform, be sure, ठीक है? And which are appropriate. And if you conclude that a misstatement is there, so first of all, communicate with whom? Consider the effect as per SF 450. And what is SF 450? Evaluation of misstatement identified during the audit. ठीक है? Management and those charged with governance से discuss करो. Same way, if there is obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence whether there is consistency of accounting policies relating to opening balances. नहीं है तो again consider the impact. ठीक है? And if there is any relevant information in the predecessor auditor's report, see. If the prior period financial statement were audited by predecessor auditor and there was a modification, ठीक है? ये कहाँ पता चल जाएगा? SA 315 में, when you are obtaining an understanding of the entity and its environment, the auditor shall evaluate the effect of the matter giving rise to the modification in assessing the risk of material misstatement in current period's financial statement. ऐसा तो नहीं है that modification is still valid, it is still having an impact on the current period financial statements. And when you are assessing under SA 315 now, see, that is the planning stage. So plan accordingly, include the verification of opening procedure to a great extent if required, depending upon your professional judgment and the type of modification that has been given in the report. ठीक है? Now, if auditor is unable, पता ही नहीं चल रहा है, I gave you example of what the financial statement have been destroyed by fire. Regarding the opening balances, give a qualified or disclaimer of opinion. ठीक है? So qualified क्या है? Disclaimer क्या है? See, these are the type of opinions when you are not saying that financial statement reflected true and fair view. You are not giving a clean report. ठीक है? And these are discussed in SA 705. And if you conclude that opening balances contain a misstatement, then again give a qualified or adverse opinion. ठीक है? So why qualified and adverse here? Why qualified and disclaimer here? See, यहाँ पे तो you are not able to conclude ना, conclusion ही नहीं है ना, तो you are disclaiming कि I cannot give an opinion. ठीक है? और यहाँ पे तो you have obtained an audit evidence ना कि गलत है, it is not correct. So you are giving either qualified or giving an adverse opinion. ठीक है? And if there is consistency, if the consistency is not there, either not consistently applied, and if not, there is no presentation disclosure, again give a qualified or adverse opinion as per SA 705. And auditor, if there is a modification in the predecessor auditor's report and you feel that it is material to the current period financial statement, And just a minute, why is this not working? Then again modify your opinion in terms of SA 705, and there is a reference of SA 710 which you will be again doing in detail in chapter number 11, and this is with respect to what? Comparative information. So abhi ke liye try to understand that, modify your opinion. So with this we have completed essay number 510. The name is the initial audit engagements dash opening balances. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now I will take a break of 10 minutes. Abhi it is 7:40. We'll be meeting at 7:50. Meanwhile, in the break, please send in your replies whether you have understood. And after the break, we'll be doing another important essay, which is 5:50. So please stay connected and come fast after a break of sharp 10 minutes. Okay, so see you after the break. Okay. So, welcome students. I hope you all are back after the short break. Quickly send in your replies. Many of you have already replied that, ma'am, we have understood both the essays and in fact on the entire chapter clearly. Okay? So, but again, students, before starting with the essay 550, which you can see on the screen, I'll again like to add on here that learning is also very, very important. Start learning all the concepts. Okay? Don't keep on compiling the things that, okay, I'll learn it later on. Abhi I have understood. Start learning. Okay, a lot out of you is expected. You are giving a professional exam. Okay, so the language that you are using in the exam needs to be technically correct also. Okay, use technical words or see, in fact, a very simple language is used. Okay, but in order to write that in the paper, you need to learn. Okay, start learning the keywords, the definitions, and start understanding also. And understanding, like learning is not, I'm not saying that you need to cram. Okay, learn after understanding. Think logically. You will be able to arrive at all the concepts by yourself if you have attended these sessions attentively and if you have gone through the module. Okay, so now let's go back to chapter number 3. Okay, so the essay that we are now starting is essay 550, related parties. Okay, have you done an essay accounting standard on this related party transactions? Quickly tell me the AS number. Quickly send in your replies. So, see students, who is responsible for preparation of financial statements? So preparation of financial statement is to be done by the management as per what? Applicable FRF. This is clear? As per what? Applicable FRF. Okay. Now there is one accounting standard AS 18 with respect to what? Related parties. Okay, which has some responsibilities on the management with respect to the identification, accounting, and disclosure of the related party transactions. Okay, so AS 18 is there. Okay, then there is section 188 of the Companies Act, whereby it says that if any contract has been entered or transaction is there with the related party, the same need to be approved by the board of directors. And in case it exceeds certain amount, then the resolution by the members is also required. Okay. Then there is section 177 of the Companies Act, whereby it says that if any transaction is there with the related party, then the approval of the audit committee is required. Now, what is an audit committee? If you remember, I told you that they are one of the examples of those charged with governance. And further audit committee, the concept will be discussed in detail in chapter number 10. And the section is what? Section 177. So see, as per the applicable FRF, there are certain responsibilities on the management of the organization. That management, when you are preparing the financial statements, you need to follow all these provisions with respect to related party. And when we are checking the financial statements, we are conducting the audit of the financial statements. See, the financial reporting framework of the client, it requires the company to comply with the requirements of AS 18, section 188 of the Companies Act, section 177 of the Companies Act. So we as an auditor, we have a responsibility. If you remember, when we did SA 200, there was a topic of overall objective of the auditor, and it was that to enable the auditor to ensure that the financial statement is prepared as per the applicable FRF. So applying AS 18, and these complying with the provisions contained in section 188 or 177, these are required by the applicable FRF. So we as an auditor, we need to see, we have a responsibility to see that whether management has fulfilled the responsibility with respect to the related party transactions. Okay? So as such, students, if any transaction is there with the related party, if any transaction is there with the related party, there is no prohibition with respect to the transactions with related party. Okay? But considering the nature of a related party transaction, the chances of collusion, the chances of fraud are very much high. That is why auditor has been given a responsibility by SA 550 with respect to the identification, accounting, and disclosure of the related party relationships and the related party transactions, okay, that are coming in the financial statements of an organization. Okay? So this is the base as to why we are studying the essay on related party. Okay? Because we need to be sure that whether the financial statements are prepared as per applicable FRF, and there is one of the applicable FRF, that is AS 18, section 188, section 177 of the Companies Act. Okay? So that is why we are studying. Okay? So I will take you through the module. I'll be doing this essay, like I'll not be writing, I'll be taking it through the module itself. So essay 5, just a minute. Essay 550 related to related parties deals with the auditor's responsibility regarding related party relationship. Just a minute. Related party relationship. कौन related party हैं, and what all transactions that have taken place. Is it purchases? Is it sale? Is it some asset? Any transaction involving asset? What are the transactions when performing an audit of financial statement? Clear. Now, what is the definition of related party that has been given in this essay, essay 550? It says that if any definition has been given in the applicable financial reporting framework, then a related party is the party which has been defined as per applicable FRF. Let's say AS 18. Okay? So whatever definition has been given there. Okay? Now, where the applicable financial reporting establishes minimal or no related party requirements, let's say, for example, in case of proprietorships, in case of cooperative societies, if there is no definition of related party that has been given by the FRF, then this essay says that consider the following. Okay? The following will be considered as what? Related party. So let's say Z is the client. You are conducting the audit of Z. Okay? Z Limited. And Z Limited has subsidiary Y, holding company Y, and X is the holding of Y Limited. So first of all, in terms of essay 550, when Z is the reporting entity, that is the client, so auditor, both Y and X are the related party of Z. Okay? So first point is this. I'll take you through the module. First, try to understand this with the help of an example. When Z is the client, so if it is the holding company is Y, and which is held by what? For Y, holding company is X. So these both become the related party of Z. Same way, if let's say X is the client, X Limited is the client, and it is the holding of Y and it is the holding of Z, then these two become the related party of X. This is our second case. And the third case says that, let's say X is the holding of Y and Z. So as per one, suppose Z is my client. So as per one above, okay, X is related party. But since Y is also under the common control of X, it also becomes the related party. Simple. Let us just have a look from the module C. So where the related party is defined as per applicable FRF, consider that definition. If it is not given, I gave the example of proprietorship firms or the cooperative societies. A person, let me just show this to you again. So this is my client. A person or other entity that has a control, significant influence directly or indirectly through one or more intermediaries over the reporting entity. Who is my reporting entity? My client is Z. So these two are having the control over Z now, so they become related parties. Simple, very simple. Okay, let's take the next example. Okay. Another entity over which the reporting entity, who is the reporting entity? My client is now X. So another entity, who are the another entities Y and Z, over which X is having control or significant influence directly or indirectly through one or more subsidiaries. Okay? And last, just a minute. Another entity that is under common control of the reporting with the reporting entity. So my reporting entity is what? Z. Another entity is what? Y. Under the common control of what? X. Either having common controlling ownership, owners who are close family members, or common key management. Okay? So abhi tak what we have seen that with respect to related parties, SF 550, the name is related parties. It deals with the auditor's responsibility regarding what? The relationships of related party and the transactions that have happened while they are performing what? An audit of financial statement. Like they need to consider whatever relationships and transactions are there during the year when they are performing the audit of financial statement, and the definition that has been given by FRF, or if it has not been given, then these are the three requirements. Okay? Now, see students, as such, in the normal course of business, there is no prohibition as to the related party transactions with respect to related party transactions. Okay? So we as an auditors, we do not have a problem with related party transactions, but yes, whenever there will be a related party transaction, our professional skepticism, our professional judgment will come into picture, right? We will now analyze each and every aspect, that why such terms and conditions have been given to this party, why this transaction with related party has taken place at this amount. Okay? Why? Because the nature and circumstances, see, the nature is such that you are related to the other party. The chances of collusion is high with respect to what? Related party. Okay. Now, why? See, it might be possible now there are 2-3 related parties. You have purchased something from one party, you have sold something to other party. So there are complex transactions. It might be possible now with respect to what? Related parties. First is this. Secondly, student, it might be possible now that the information system that has been implemented in the organization, okay, that system is ineffective in identifying the related party. See, there are so much personnel at the key positions. Okay? So it might be possible now that management itself not aware about the various related parties. Hana? And further again, management may fraudulently do not disclose the related party to the auditor. Okay? It might happen, let's say there is a company which is dealing in furnitures. Okay? It is manufacturing furnitures. Okay? And that company is giving those furnitures to one of the related party without any consideration. Hana? So that is why the auditor has to consider whether the related party relationships, whether the related party transactions have been identified, they have been properly accounted for, and they have been disclosed as per the applicable financial reporting framework. ठीक है? इतना समझ आता है कि related party से as such we have no problem. ठीक है, बट उनका नेचर ऐसा होता है दैट चांसेस आर देयर, कल्यूजन होने के चांसेस ज्यादा है, कॉम्प्लेक्स, दे कैन बी कॉम्प्लेक्स. ठीक है, द सिस्टम में बी इनइफेक्टिव इन आइडेंटिफाइंग एंड समराइजिंग दोज रिलेटेड पार्टी ट्रांजैक्शंस, एंड इट मे हैपन दैट मैनेजमेंट इज इंटेंशनली intentionally giving some benefits to the related party. Okay? So the auditor will have to consider all those things. So what is the responsibility of the auditor? Itna to samajh aata hai na, that since there are some the applicable financial reporting framework AS18, the provision of the Companies Act, there are specific provisions which require the management to fulfill their responsibility with respect to accounting and disclosure of the related party transactions, the relationship, the balances that are appearing in the financial statement. That is why we as an auditor, we need to check. ठीक है. अब जब when we have to check, tell me, first and foremost, where will you assess the risk of material misstatement with respect to related party? ठीक है. Where will you identify and assess the risk of material misstatement with respect to related party? I need the SA number and I need answers from at least from many of you. We have done this a number of times now. So students are saying, yes, ma'am, we have done AS18, we have done what? Section 177. And students, it is in the AS24. Anna? Many of you are saying AS24. No, it is in the AS24 or AS18. Okay. So my query was, where will you assess the risk of material misstatement, identify and assess the risk of material misstatement with respect to related party? See, when under SA 315, you are obtaining an understanding about the entity and its environment by performing, let's say, inquiry as a procedure, as a risk assessment procedure. You will ask the management that management, tell me about your related party transactions. So it says that auditor, you have a responsibility to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement under SA 315. Then when you assess the risk of material misstatement with respect to the related party, yes, students are correct, have correctly answered me, SA 315. Now tell me, where will you respond to such risk under SA? Quickly send in your replies. Where will you respond to such risk? So this SA says that auditor, once you have identified and assessed the risk of material misstatement relating to related party, respond to such risk by accordingly planning and performing the further audit procedures under SA 330. Okay? So auditor needs to obtain an understanding about the related party transactions, the related party relationships. Why? Because ultimately he needs to conclude whether the relationship, the transactions of related parties, whether they reflect a true and fair view. They should not be misleading. Okay? So he will identify and assess the risk of material misstatement with respect to related party, and accordingly under SA 330 he will respond to such risk by planning and performing the further audit procedures accordingly. Okay? Now this SA says that auditor, listen one more thing. Since the party is known, it is related, the chances of fraud are very much high with respect to related party. Chances of collusions between the client and the party is very much high. So consider the effect when you are working in terms of SA 240. SA 240, and the name of SA 240 is the auditor's responsibility relating to fraud in an audit of financial statement. Okay? So it says that since the chances of fraud with respect to related parties is high. Why? Because you know the other party. The chances of collusions are high. So consider your responsibility relating to fraud in terms of SA 240, which is what the auditor's responsibility relating to fraud in an audit of financial statements. Further, SA 550 also says that auditor, do you remember there are certain inherent limitations of audit? Quickly tell me, students, you have done inherent limitations of audit with me in chapter number 1. Tell me, have you seen something related to related party in that topic? And tell me the point number where we have studied about related party. This is one of the inherent limitations of an audit. Quickly tell me, quickly, I need answers. I need to finish this up and I need to revise all the 3 essays that we have done today. Quickly send in your replies. So what I was discussing, that since the chances of fraud with related party is high, so the auditor needs to consider his responsibilities with respect to the fraud in an audit of financial statement in terms of SA 240 240. Okay? Further, we have already studied about the inherent limitations of an audit under SA 200, whereby in point number 4, there were 4 points. Remember, nature of financial reporting process, nature of audit procedure, timeliness, balance between cost and benefit, and last point was other matters, whereby point number B may studied about related party transactions. So since it is there is an unavoidable risk that any material misstatement may remain undetected. Why? Because of the related party transactions. So auditor, you need to apply professional skepticism all the time. Whenever you are planning, whenever you are performing the audit, please apply professional skepticism throughout the audit. Why? Because related party transactions is one of the inherent limitations. It is not possible to reduce the audit risk to 0. Why? Because it might be possible that the management has not told you about all the related party transactions. See, tell me, unless and until management will tell you who are the related parties, you cannot be sure. And further, it might be possible that management is itself not aware about the related parties. Okay? So auditor, apply professional skepticism, being alert to each and every situation. Let's say management has given a list of 10 related party transactions to you. You find 11th related party transactions. Ask management, why have you not disclosed this party to me? Is there a fraud risk factor associated with it? And accordingly decide the NTE of the audit procedures. Okay. So, abhi tak what we have done in this essay, essay 550 is with respect to what related parties. It says it deals with the auditor's responsibility with respect to the related party relationships and the identification of relationships and the transactions. Okay. Now, what are related party? We have seen the definition says that the whatever has been given in the applicable FRF, and if the applicable FRF gives minimal or no requirement, then we have seen these 3 examples. Okay? This example means Z is my client, so X and Y are related in example number 1. In example number 2, X is my client, so Y and Z are related. And in this, if Z is my client, then Y also becomes related. Okay? Now then it says that auditor, you need to it says that there is no problem as such with related party transaction, but since the nature is such that the chances of fraud is high. Why? Because maybe related party transactions are very complex. Isse kharida, usko becha, usko involve kiya, because these are what related parties. Okay? Further, the information system may also be ineffective to identify and summarize the related party transactions, right? And it may also happen that management intentionally, enter into related party transaction with the no consideration, okay? Or let's say which are not as per the normal market के टर्म्स, ठीक है. सो ऑडिटर को क्या करना है, सिंस देयर आर सर्टेन रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज ऑन द मैनेजमेंट विद रिस्पेक्ट टू आइडेंटिफिकेशन एंड द डिस्क्लोजर एंड अकाउंटिंग ऑफ रिलेटेड पार्टी. सो ऑडिटर has to, when he is assessing the risk of material misstatement in terms of SC315, he needs to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement, whether there are risk associated with, whether there is a risk associated with related party transactions, and accordingly when he is responding as in terms of SC330, he need to plan his audit procedures accordingly, ठीक है. So basically auditor को क्या करना है, he needs to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence that with respect to related party, the financial statement reflect a true and fair view. The financial statement are not misleading. ठीक है. Further, since the chances of fraud are high, consider your responsibility in terms of SC240. What is SC240? The name is auditor's responsibility relating to fraud in an audit of financial statement. Also, auditor, you have already studied in SC200 about inherent limitations of audit. So chances are high that there is a risk that the material misstatement with respect to related party, they may be undetected, ठीक है. So auditor say तो क्या करना है, apply professional skepticism throughout the audit when you are planning, when you are performing the audit procedures. SC315, SC330, apply professional skepticism, ठीक है. इतना समझ आता है. Now auditor says, ठीक है, I have a responsibility. Tell me how to identify the related parties. You are saying I need to identify the related parties now. Tell me how to identify. And it says that, see, if there is an applicable FRF, AS18, फिर तो management is required to record such transactions as per the applicable FRF. So consider that. ठीक है. In case there is no applicable FRF, ठीक है, in that case now, since there is no applicable FRF, so management itself is not aware as to who are related party transactions, ठीक है. But you can always inquire management now. You can always tell the management that management, see, this is the definition given by my essay. Tell me who all parties fall under this definition. Hana? You can always inquire the management. And when can you do that? When you are assessing the risk of material misstatement, when you are performing the risk assessment procedures. Now students, comes your like I will ask you a question. This will show me whether you have understood chapter number 1 in detail or not. Okay, so it says that how to identify na. So it is saying that management auditor where FRF is given na, to wahan pe to management will record. So consider that. Now if FRF is not given, you know the definition na. Ask the management that management tell me who all parties come here, and you will perform it as risk assessment procedures. Now, if you remember, when we were discussing about risk assessment procedures under SC315, we performed the procedures to obtain the knowledge of the client business. Tell me, there were 5 points. 5 points were there. In which point can give the information with respect to the related party transactions? I'll tell you all 5 points. First was with respect to external factors. Second was with respect to the nature of the entity. Okay? Third point with respect to accounting policies. Remember? Then the objectives, risk and strategies, and last point with respect to the financial performance. Quickly tell me which point will help the auditor to inquire the management, that management tell me all these things, and then auditor will be know about the related party transactions. There are 5 points which I have told you. So when we were obtaining the knowledge of the client business, and we obtained the knowledge of the second point, that is nature of the entity. Okay? Thereby you understood what all points. You remember how the company is structured, how it is financed. Okay? What type of investments the company has made. Is there any special purpose entity? Entities, ownership and governance structure. Yes, Neha has answered it correctly. That second, nature of business, nature of entity. ठीक है. So वहां पे when you are performing the risk assessment procedures, वहां पे you ask the management ना, that management give me details about your ownership structure, about how the entity is structured and financed, what is the governance structure, what are the investments. Why? Because it might be possible that management there is no applicable FRF, but management is aware about all the situations now. So ask the management that who falls under this category. That is the definition that has been given by SA 550. ठीक है. Now auditor says ठीक है, I'll identify. Now tell me how to verify. Management ने बता दिया ना that ठीक है, all these entities fall under these categories. So I have identified at the risk by performing risk assessment procedures. Now tell me how to verify. So what all documents can be verified by the auditor in order to know the existence of the related party relationship and transactions? A very simple topic which I'll be taking you through the module. Okay? So see, in order to verify, how can auditor verify the existence of related party relationships and transactions? So during the audit, the auditor should maintain alertness. You remember, alertness is what? Professional skepticism for related party information while reviewing records and documents. Okay? Be alert to all the conditions. Okay? He may inspect the following records or documents that may provide information about related party relationships and transactions. For example, auditor, you may verify about the existence of the related party relationships and transactions from the entity's income tax returns. You may peruse them. Peruse is what? Read. The information supplied by entity to maybe some regulatory authorities, the shareholder register to identify the entity's principal shareholders. Okay? Very simple to understand. Statements of conflict of interest from management and those charged with governance, records of entities' investments, contracts or agreement with key management personnel. Okay? Any significant contract or agreement not in the entity's ordinary course of business. Entity is in the business of, say, rice, trading of rice. It has now invested in a property. Why? Okay? So not in the entity's ordinary course of business. Specific invoice or correspondence from entities, professional advisors, the life insurance policies that you have acquired. See, if the company is acquiring, it must be something, some relationship must be there now. Significant contracts renegotiated, the terms have been renegotiated, and here I'll say, suppose auditor finds that there is a side agreement. Hana? Students were asking me, ma'am, what is side agreement? See, basically it says that apart from the normal agreement that you have made for the other parties, the management has entered into some other terms and conditions which are not shown to the auditor. Okay? Wahan pe they, under that agreement, the subsidiary or the side agreement, the management is given, let's say, some benefits to 2 or 3 parties. Why? Are they related to you? Okay? Why have you entered into side agreements? So significant terms renegotiated by the entity. Why this has happened? Internal auditor's report or documents associated with entities filing with the SEBI regulators. Example, the prospectuses and all. So auditor will study all these. Auditor will apply his professional skepticism, his professional judgment during the entire course of audit while planning and performing an audit. So let us just quickly recapitulate as to what we have done in SA 550. Students, I need your replies, your queries. If you have any queries, please send in. And also, if you have understood this essay, also send me that. Okay? Whether you are able to understood whatever we have done so far in this chapter. Okay? So what is the meaning of related parties? So first of all, SA 550. See, 5 and 5 are related. Na? So you can learn this essay name by this, related parties. Okay? It deals with auditor's responsibility regarding related party relationships and transactions when performing an audit of financial statement. Now, definition: a related party as defined in applicable FRF AS 18, okay, or IND AS 24, or where applicable financial reporting framework establishes minimal or no related party transaction. Example, your proprietorship cooperative society. So in that case, Z, the related party are Y and X. Okay? Then For X, the related party are Y and Z, and in the last case, for Z, related party are X and Y. Nature of related parties. See, many related party transactions are in normal course of business. So as such, they do not carry any risk of material misstatement. Okay? But the nature of related parties and the circumstances, it gives rise to higher risk of material misstatement as compared to transactions with unrelated parties. ठीक है? Nature ऐसा होता है related party का that you are related, you know the third party, है ना? And circumstances may lead to risk of material misstatement. Example, related parties may operate through extensive and complex range of relationship and structures. ठीक है? Information systems may be ineffective at identifying or summarizing transactions or accounting balances between entity and related parties. ठीक है? And related party transaction may not be conducted under normal market terms. For example, some related party transactions may be conducted with no exchange of consideration. ठीक है? So what is the responsibility? First of all, say there is a responsibility on the management. There are specific accounting disclosure requirements. किसके ऊपर है? Who will disclose? Management, because they are preparing financial statement for related party transactions, balances. Why? To enable the users to understand the nature and effect on the financial statement. ठीक है? तो auditor को क्या करना है? The auditor has a responsibility to perform audit procedures to identify and assess. कहाँ करते हैं? SC 315 and respond कहाँ करते हैं? SC 330 to the risk of material misstatement arising from the entity's failure to appropriately account for related party relationship, transactions and balances. ठीक है? So auditor को he needs to obtain an understanding and he needs to see, he needs to conclude that with respect to related party that financial statement reflected true and fair view and they are not misleading. And we saw that auditor, since the fraud risk factor is high, है ना? Why? Because the fraud may be more easily committed through related party. So consider your responsibility in terms of SA 240 also. Further, auditor, owing to inherent limitations given by SA 200, an unavoidable risk that material misstatement of financial statement may not be detected. तो क्या करना है? Plan and perform करो in accordance with SA. Why? Why is there is a risk? Why? Because management may be unaware. Management को ही नहीं पता है that what are the related parties. Further, related party relationship may give a greater opportunity for collusion. ठीक है? तो क्या करें? Professional skepticism. कब करना है? While planning and performing, apply professional skepticism throughout the audit. ठीक है? Now I have understood. Auditor says that I have understood what are my responsibilities. Tell me how to identify the related parties. So it says that if the applicable FRF is there, then management se पूछ लो ना. Why? Because management information system will be recording them as per the applicable FRF. So therefore, management is having a comprehensive list of the related parties. ठीक है? And in case it is a recurring audit, recurring is what? You were the auditor last year also. So if there are any change of the related party, inquire the management that management is very कोई add हुआ है क्या related party. ठीक है? However, अगर कोई framework नहीं है, तो management, auditor, you know the definition of the related party as per the SA. So make inquiries. ठीक है? Inquiries. See, the requirement to make inquiries specified above still applies because management may be aware of the parties that meet the related party definition. Management को पता तो होगा ना what all parties are there, तो उनसे पूछ लो ना whether they fall into that definition or not. ठीक है? And you are performing the risk assessment procedures under SA 315. Obtain the following knowledge. Remember, nature of entity, the second point that we have done. ठीक है? And students, please start learning. I did not get a reply from number of students as I was expecting. ठीक है? That you will send me like I'll get good number of replies with respect to this point as to where we have done in chapter number 1. ठीक है? And then how to verify. We have seen that the auditor may consider all these in all these documents. ठीक है? So with this we have completed SA 550, and then there is this concept of true and fair which you can do as a homework. It basically says that auditor ko karna kya hota hai when he is conducting an audit. So it says that auditor has to give his opinion that whether the balance sheet, that is the state of affairs, or the results of entity, operational results given by P&L, whether they reflect a true and fair view. ठीक है? And uske liye what all auditor will check? That the assets are neither overvalued, undervalued, no material asset is omitted, the charge are disclosed, material liability should not be omitted. So these are very general points. So this question you can do as a homework. ठीक है? उसके बाद in this chapter, we are left with very important 2 essays, and we need to discuss the descriptive 5 questions. The whatever questions I have given you, which we'll be doing in the next class, which is on Sunday. So Sunday, we are again meeting for the last session of this chapter. And students, please, I will be covering the 2 essays. I'll be discussing the questions and I'll be revising the entire chapter. We will see how the quick revision of this entire chapter, which consists of 87 pages, we will try to revise it in the minimum time possible. Okay? So please attend that session and take the advantage of the revision. Okay? So let us just quickly have a look of whatever we have done today, and then I'll end the session. Your next 10 minutes I want. Okay? So we started our session with external confirmation today. Okay? First of all, let me just have a sip of water, then we'll start. Meanwhile, send me if in case you have any reply, and also send me if you have understood or not. So, external confirmation essay 505. So basically deals with the auditor's responsibility to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence when he's performing what? External confirmation procedures. And we have seen that since it is received from independent source, it is what? Reliable. It is obtained directly and it is in documentary form, it is reliable. Okay? What is the definition? It is the audit evidence obtained as a direct written response to the auditor from a third party in paper, electronic or other medium. Positive confirmation, that a request that confirming party respond directly to the auditor, indicating whether the confirming party agrees or disagrees with the information or provide the requested information. Negative is what? The confirming party responds only if the confirming party disagrees with the information provided in the request. What is non-response? When a response to positive confirmation is not received, or with respect to both the confirmation, it is returned undelivered. Okay? Exception is what? When the information mentioned in the response is not matching with the information given in the account balances or other elements like invoice-wise, terms of agreements, or absence of certain conditions. Like ऐसा तो नहीं है that there is any side agreement कि कुछ parties के साथ in order to give them some benefits, the entity has entered into some subsidiary agreements which has not been shown to the auditor. Okay? Then selecting the appropriate confirming party, knowledgeable person se hi we will take the confirmation. Designing the confirmation request, it should be properly addressed and it should contain return information. And there are certain factors which affect the designing, like the risk of material misstatement, the layout, presentation, the prior experience, the assertions being addressed, methods, management authorization may be required, and the ability of the third party to confirm. Now follow up, then the last point is what? Sending the request and including follow up. If you have not received the reply within the reasonable time, you may verify the accuracy of the address and send an additional or follow up request. If management refuses, consider the reasons. Inquire the management that what are the reasons. See the validity and the reasonableness. Consider its implication or no assessment of risk of material misstatement, which you did in essay 315, and the impact on the NTE of your audit procedures. Perform alternative procedures. Okay? Management is refusing. Communicate with what? those charged with governance. Someone was asking name of SC260. It is communication with those charged with governance. Okay, and modify your opinion as per SC705. Okay, and then negative कब करना है? Since they'll give you less persuasive audit evidence, perform the negative confirmation request only if these following are present. That is, the risk of material misstatement is low, internal controls are effective. Second, the population is large. It consists of small homogeneous account balances, transactions or conditions. Okay. Third, a very low exception rate is expected. And last, the auditor is not aware of any circumstance that the person who is getting the negative confirmation will disregard such request. Evaluate the evidence obtained. Okay. This was our SA 505. There is a topic which is discussed in substantive procedure, that is conforming party may not be willing to reply. We have done that. You can just have a look at that topic also. SA 510, initial audit engagements, opening balances. Okay. It deals with the auditor's responsibility with respect to the opening balances when conducting an initial audit engagement. Initial audit engagement kya hota hai? When the engagement, either the financial statements for the prior period were not audited or they were audited by predecessor auditor. Opening balances mein what all will come? The financial statement amounts and the disclosures. Okay. What is the objective? To obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence that the opening balance do not contain a material misstatement that could materially, see, materiality will be applied all the time. You have done SC320, so it affects the current period financial statement and whether appropriate accounting policies have been consistently applied, and if not, whether the presentation and disclosure has been done or not. Okay. करना कैसे है? First of all, read the most recent financial statement and predecessor's auditor report. Okay. Then obtain the sufficient appropriate audit evidence. कैसे? By performing the following. क्या क्या करना है? That the closing balance of the last year has been correctly brought forward as the opening of the current year. Okay? And if there has been any adjustment, whether it has been shown as prior period item and it has been duly disclosed. Okay? Then see whether the opening balances reflect the application of the appropriate accounting policies. Perform these three things, that is, peruse, reading, go through the audited financial statement. And auditor, you may perform certain current year audit procedure जिससे opening balances के लिए audit evidence मिल सकता है. Example, we took the example of debtor. ठीक है कि debtor का opening was 4 lakhs and 4 lakhs is received during the year, then it's fine. ठीक है तो opening के लिए as such you did not perform any specific procedure. And yes, with respect to certain items of the financial statement, for example, fixed assets, your long time liabilities, you may perform specific audit procedures. Now here you may feel that, ma'am, the scope of the audit has increased, yet yes, it has increased. You are assessing it under SA 315. Now, wahi pe you read the prior period financial statements, the predecessor auditor's report. आपको लगता है you may accordingly decide the scope, plan, and perform the audit accordingly. ठीक है? Then, if you find an audit evidence that the misstatement in the opening could materially affect the current year financial statement, so first of all, perform additional audit procedure. If you conclude, then communicate with management and those charged with governance. SA 450 क्यों लिखा हुआ है? Because it is what evaluation of the misstatement identified during the conduct of audit. Okay. Then same way with respect to let's say predecessor auditor wala point, that see is there any modification in the predecessor auditor's report और कहाँ देखोगे? SA 315 में. ठीक है. अब करना क्या है? In case you are unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence, करना सब में यही है. End में जाके you need to modify. ठीक है. What kind of modification? That is discussed in SA 705. अभी के लिए, if you are unable, you cannot give an opinion, ना give qualified or disclaimer. ठीक है. See, these opinions are given depending upon the materiality of the misstatement. कितना material, ठीक है, and the pervasiveness of the misstatement, कि whether it is affecting the financial statement as a whole. ठीक है. And you will be discussing these topics in SA 705 chapter number 11. ठीक है. Same way, if you are not finding that consistent accounting policies are followed or the disclosure has been done proper, qualify them. If there is a modification, you feel that modification is still relevant to your current year financial statement, modify it. ठीक है. Your opinion. Now related party, up to a quick revision of 5 minutes to this essay. In fact, less than 5 minutes. See, auditor को क्या देखना है? The relationship and transaction. Definition क्या है? As given by applicable FRF. FRF में नहीं है तो ये 3 चीजें. ठीक है. Nature क्या है कि as such normal course में the related party do not carry a higher risk of material misstatement, but considering the nature and the circumstances, the chances of risk of material misstatement are higher as compared to unrelated. Why? Because there can be extensive or complex range of relationships, transactions with related party. The system may be ineffective to identify and summarize the transactions, and it may be possible that management may enter into transactions at, let's say, for no exchange of considerations. तो करना क्या है? When first of all management is responsible, ठीक है? So when you are identifying and assessing under SA 315, वहां पे देखो is there a risk of material misstatement with respect to related party, and respond to those risks accordingly. ठीक है? Obtain, conclude as to whether the financial statement achieve a true and fair view and they are not misleading with respect to what your financial related party transactions. And 240 को consider करो fraud को. Why? Because chances of fraud with related party are high. 200 में inherent limitations को भी consider करो, and auditor इसलिए apply professional skepticism throughout the audit. How to identify if FRF में गया है, management के पास information होगा, consider that. Take that comprehensive list. Pick up the keywords, ठीक है? Pick up the keywords and learn. And if it is not given, ठीक है? तो whatever is the requirement, inquire the management ना, and tell them the definition. कौन सा transactions इस definition में fall करता है, they will be able to tell you. And इसे कैसे हो सकता है? ऐसे 315 में when you obtain the knowledge of the client business, more specifically about the nature of entity. ठीक है? And what all documents can be verified? All these documents can be verified. Concept of true and fair is your homework. And again, I'm saying two very important essays, essay 560 and essay 570. We will be doing these essays in the next session with the revision of the entire chapter along with the discussion of all the questions. But before coming for the next session, please go through all the questions, MCQs and case scenarios you will be in a position to answer. Okay? So write the answers on a sheet so that next session can be more and more interactive, and you can, check your level of understanding of this chapter. Okay? So thank you for the extra 13 minutes today, and do message me whether you have understood or not, and please fill in the feedback form that is available at the end of this session. Okay? So thank you and a good night to all of you. Thank you.